Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is episode number 16 of the Baseball and Beer podcast. I am your host, Brendan Bowes, and I am here to take you through the journey of what I consider two of America's greatest inventions. As always, even though beer isn't necessarily an American creation, I am taking it back to us. Episode 16, so what is that, 4 months? 4 months, that's a long time. Never would have considered be doing this long, but, you know, I'm sitting in front of my own computer using my own microphone, so it's not like there was a predetermined choice here. I'm doing it myself. But, yeah, so episode 16, hoping for many more after this. Anyway, to get down to business, if you want to get in touch with me, there are several ways to do so. First and foremost, you can email me at baseballbeerpodcast@gmail.com. I will answer any questions I receive there. If you're a Twitter person, it's at baseballbeerpod. If you want to join my Facebook group, where I will post questions, pictures, GIF files, random pictures, I think I just already said that, you know, the various Facebook group stuff. It is facebook.com/baseballbeerpod. Lastly, if you want to listen to previous episodes of the Baseball and Beer podcast, if episode 16 is the first one that you've listened to and you like it and you want to listen to the other 15, you can go online at baseballandbeerpodcast.blogspot.com. That's where you can find the other previous episodes. Otherwise, you could just go on iTunes and subscribe to me there. There's no fancy title card or anything for my podcast. It's just a dumb picture of a silly pink penguin in my car. So, yeah, those are the ways to get in touch with me. So, before I get into the meat of the podcast, as you will, I know previously I've talked about my experiences going to Beyond Wrestling down in Rhode Island and how much I enjoyed those. So, I guess it's not out of the ordinary for me to say that I am a wrestling fan. So with that in mind, I wanted to dive into something a little bit different for at least the first part of this podcast. WWE Summerslam is coming up this Sunday. That would be the 22nd, I believe? 23rd. So yeah, August 23rd is Summerslam. It's WWE's second or third highest pay-per-view, I guess. You know, there's WrestleMania, the top tier, and then it's usually argued between SummerSlam and Royal Rumble. Doesn't really matter. It's fun regardless. So this has been one of the pay-per-views that have been going on since the 80s, and they continue this tradition on Sunday. So what I wanted to do real quick is run down the card and at least give my opinions on what I think is going to happen, even though I don't watch Raw. I have no idea what the story... Well, I do have some idea, vague ideas, but just want to give this a shot, see how it works. So I'm at WWE's website, and I'm going to go backwards from what they consider the first match all the way to the main event, because this should be interesting in its own right. All right, so first off here, they have Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev. So if my understanding is correctly, based on this picture, Lana had left Rusev and is now with Dolph Ziggler. And Summer Rae is now with Rusev. I guess that's how it's working. There's really not much to say because I really don't care. I mean, Dolph Ziggler, from what I've heard, doesn't have his bleach blonde hair, so... You know, that kind of takes away part of his charm. My hope is that Rusev just breaks his back. I mean, not literally, but, you know, does his accolade and forces him to pass out. But probably be a spot where the women kick each other's ass because, you know, that's what they've been teasing. All right, so next match is... next match... I don't even know how to go over this. Team Bella versus Team Bad versus PCB? Alright, so it looks like we got The faction spearheading the Divas Revolution collide at SummerSlam in a 3-team elimination match. Okay, so I'm guessing... Oh, okay, no, I remember this. All right, so it's Paige, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte. Charlotte and Becky Lynch being from NXT against Nikki and Brie Bella, and I think that's Alicia Fox, I think, against Tamina, one of Brodus Clay's dancers, Naomi, and Sasha Banks from NXT. So looks like this is an elimination match. I know there's been some discussion on how this is going to happen, whether or not it's going to be a triangle match, one person from each team is always in the ring, or if it's going to be your typical WWE match where it's only going to be 2 people in the ring at any given time and you can tag out to whoever. Regardless, it should be entertaining because you have 4. You have four NXT ladies that have kicked butt down there, so should be good for a Divas match, I guess. Well, next up is Kevin Owens versus Cesaro. To me, this is going to be Kevin Steen versus Claudio Castagnoli, because that's how I know them both in the independent scene. Both of them are fantastic wrestlers. This is going to be probably the better matches of the night, if not the best match, depending on how much time they're given. I'm really not sure why they're fighting, but I don't necessarily care because the two of them are awesome. Again, I don't care who wins because they're both awesome. I know both of them have a lot riding on them winning in terms of storylines and moving forward in the WWE, but as long as they get 10 minutes, 15 minutes, then I'll be happy regardless of the outcome. All right, so I know previously I was talking about, we're going way back here, how I was a fan of Arrow, the TV show, and I think I mentioned last week that Stephen Amell had showed up on Raw, and officially there was a match that was announced where it was Mr. Amell and Neville versus Stardust and King Wade Barrett. So this is just going to be a showcase match just for the shits and giggles to get on SportsCenter and make the news with their Hollywood star in the ring. I know Mel is very into parkour when it comes to his training. Rumor was at some point last week he was doing snatches, the Olympic lift snatches, and busted his mouth, but he seems to be better. He'll be able to get in the ring, and he should at least be able to do something. Probably one of the better celebrity wrestlers that have ever stepped into the ring. So that should be fun. All right, next on their list is a fatal 4-way tag match consisting of the Matadors, the New Day, Tag Team Champion Primetime Players, and the Lucha Dragons of Sin Cara and, I forgot, Kalisto. It always seems like that there's some sort of mix and match between those 4 teams, pay-per-views, and from what I've read in Raw. So, everyone's very familiar with each other. The Usos are I don't want to say long gone, but, they're out of everyone's memory right now because one of them has a busted knee. I know how that feels. But, like I said, all 4 of these teams have worked together previously, so it should be entertaining in that sense. Excuse me. To pick a winner would be... it's either going to be the New Day or Primetime Players, because no one cares about the Matadors, and the Lucha Dragons, I don't know how over they are, so who knows. Between the New Day and Primetime Players, my guess is that the New Day wins the titles back. It's tough to say because they're entertaining enough without the belts, and the Primetime Players really need them more, but WWE has their own agenda when it comes to that sort of stuff. Next up is a tag match, another tag match, but this is a 2-on-2 tag match. It is the reformed Wyatt team, or Team Wyatt, of Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper against 2/3 of the former Shield, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. I know Bray Wyatt has interfered on previously with both Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. I guess that's where they're going with it. I would hope the Shield wins, but either way, it should be fun. I'm a big fan of Luke Harper, especially when he was at Indies as Brody Lee. Big motherfucker that can dive and kick hard, so he's always going to get my respect. I hope he does well, or at least eventually does well. Anyway, again, another match that should be good for just because of the people involved. All right, I guess we're at the home stretch here. Next up is a triple threat match for the Intercontinental title. Big Show, Ryback, Miz. Who cares? After that is... wow, this is the third match build? Okay, that's interesting. John Cena versus Seth Rollins for both United States Championship and Rollins World Heavyweight Championship. Winner take all is what they're calling it. So I would expect Cena to win because no world champion wins the lower belt ever. Possibly it might be a fuck finish just because, but I know there's been talk of Cena taking over Ric Flair's quote unquote record of world title wins, and it took Flair 25 years to do that, and it's going to take John Cena 15. Don't know if that matters or if that's relevant or not, but, just something to think about. But, yeah, this match is totally John Cena's, and it's going to be silly, and possibly the Money in the Bank. Sheamus is going to, come in and win, cash in Money in the Bank and win the title after Cena wins, just because they don't like us. WWE doesn't like us. Speaking of Sheamus, he is in a one-on-one match against Randy Orton. And just to put this in perspective, this is a higher build match than the title for title match. Just want to put that out there. I have no idea as to why these two are fighting. Again, I don't care who wins either. We'll go with Randy Orton just because he is not Sheamus. And the main event, at least the main event that's billed on SummerSlam, it may not be the main event and the actual card, who knows, but it's the rematch of WrestleMania, 30? Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. This is the first time The Undertaker has fought in a non-WrestleMania match in probably 4 or 5 years, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep up the pace, wrestling more than one match a year. As we all know, Undertaker has taken kindly to kicking people in the dick, and by people I mean just Brock Lesnar. So I guess the big question here is if Undertaker gets his win back. I think in a vacuum, Brock Lesnar should win, but WWE, again, as I've said before, WWE's booking can be really weird, so it wouldn't surprise me to see Undertaker winning. But it should be an interesting match as long as Undertaker doesn't get a concussion 15 minutes into the match and fucks everything up like it did at WrestleMania. So that's the breakdown of SummerSlam. If anyone agrees, anyone disagrees, certainly let me know. I have no problem talking it over because that's what I like to do. Beer is good! Beer is good! Beer is good! It's the... There's really not a whole lot going on in my life when it comes to beer. It's Wednesday. I usually go to Jack's Abbey on Thursdays for their casks and whatever new beer they put out. So, unfortunately, I don't have any news there. One thing I can say is that on Saturday, I'm probably going down to OEC again. I think I talked about them last year. Towards the end of I think it was the end of summer last year. Wow. Has it been that long? But, or no, maybe it was spring. Wow. My brain is toast. But, yeah, OEC is a place down in, Connecticut. It's actually near where I grew up, probably about half hour down the road. But my friends and I were going to a wedding that's about 25 minutes away from the brewery, so figured we'd give it a shot. Big fan of let me rephrase that. They're very sour-based beer brewery, and when we went, they were having some sort of tasting festival or something along those lines. They were giving away a lot of sour beers and some mead as well. Mead, of course, is honey-based beer or honey-based wine, however you want to get technical, or however technical you want to get. But it's a very, very sweet beer, obviously, if they're using honey. But OEC, they prefer serving their beers sour and honey-based, so more power to them. It's certainly a deep and heavy palate you got to have to enjoy it, but when we went last time, I really enjoyed everything, and from what seems to be on tap this coming Saturday, should be enjoyable as well. Yeah, so I took a quick look back, and actually my last trip was earlier this spring. It was back in mid-April, so it's been shorter than I thought. Felt like forever since we were there, but again, looking forward to OEC. It was fun when we went there. It should be another good time. Like I said, when we went before, I enjoyed all their stuff. They're very foreign-based too, so it's nice to get cultured when it comes to beer, and that's what I expect to happen this time around. So I will certainly give a trip report next week about that trip. Also, probably going to be having the Ghost that I helped brew earlier this month, or no, I'll get back in July. So interested to see how that's going to turn out as well. Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to Untappd for allowing me to remember all this. I strongly suggest everyone downloading Untappd or go to their website and sign up for it, especially if you like craft beer, just because it allows you to remember what you had and what you thought about it, so that 4 months from now, when you go back and try to remember where you were, what you had, it's right there on your phone or online for you. So go to untappd.com. It's spelled a little bit differently. It is untappd.com. There's no E in there. Sign up and, be able to monitor what you drink and what you thought of it.
Single, double, triple, home run. For the celebration, I'll shoot my gun.
The biggest piece of baseball news that happened over the last week, I think I mentioned it last week on the podcast, where Dave Dombrowski, former GM of the Detroit Tigers, was let go of his contract. Just yesterday, he was signed by the Boston Red Sox. So I know, I'm local to Boston, and I'm pretty sure I have several Boston Red Sox listeners, so you might be asking, what does this mean? Why should I care? Well, there's a huge difference between the way Ben Cherington, the old GM, and Dave Dombrowski handle business. Cherington loved his prospects. I mean, he loved his own prospects. The people he developed, he was very hesitant to trade. It seemed like it worked out for him, because that gave you Xander Bogaerts, it gave you Betts. I forget his first name. It's not Mookie Betts, is it? I'm pretty sure it is. And then there's Blake Swihart, the catcher. And, those are three of the first couple that come to the top of my head. So I know, Cherington probably could have traded one, if not all three, for, good current players, 2 or 3 years ago. But he decided to keep them, and now he's able to reap those benefits of these players. Dombrowski handles things a little bit differently. He has no problem trading away the younger talent for more proven superstars. He was the person who he was in charge of the Tigers when they traded for Miguel Cabrera from the Marlins, and at the time it seemed like he was giving up a lot. But if you go back and look at who he traded for, you'll find that he made the right call. So I actually just looked back and did a little bit of research. So the Marlins gave Miguel Cabrera and pitcher Dontrelle Willis to the Tigers, and this is what the Tigers gave to Miami. relief pitcher Andrew Miller, some guy I don't know, Dallas Trayern, another guy I don't know, Eugenio De La Cruz, another guy I don't know, Burke Badenhop, and then the two failed prospects, Cameron Maben and catcher Mike Rabello. I don't know what happened to most of these guys. I know Andrew Miller is currently the closer for the Yankees, and he's doing a good job. But he's not even on the Marlins anymore, so that's irrelevant. And Miguel is still playing for the Tigers, still playing very well for the Tigers, even though they just recently, earlier this year, signed him for an additional 6-7 years for, quadrillion dollars, even though they really shouldn't have. There was no reason to, but they did, and that was something Dave Dombrowski wanted because, like I said, the big difference is that Dombrowski prefers the more current crop of players rather than trying to bank on the future of prospects. They each have their pros and cons. To Dombrowski's benefit, he actually is a good scout for current talent, so Boston will probably end up with a revamped team in the next 2 or 3 years, possibly revolving around the young guys. Maybe they'll be used for trade bait to get more solid players. That I'm not 100% certain on, but it's a good move. It's certainly going to shake up the team, but that's enough about not White Sox, because I wanted to talk about the White Sox again. Since last week, they've still sucked. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Well, no, I'll go on. That's pretty much it. They've sucked. They had the weekend series against the Cubs for the BP Cup, Crosstown Cup. And since I'm not from Chicago, I don't really care about the Cup. And I think it's a dumb thing. I think the rivalry is, I understand why there's a in-town rivalry. I think a lot of people get way too worked up over it. I know I'm in a couple of different Chicago fan groups on Facebook just because I'm a White Sox fan. And, when it's done in jest, I can understand it, but it seems like these people go way too far with some of it. But that's their prerogative. Can't reason, so why bother? But Cubs took 2 out of 3. But for whatever reason, the White Sox won the Cup because the series ended in a tie. And when a series ends in a tie, the Cup stays with whoever won it last. And so since the White Sox won it last year, they get to keep it. So, yay, we beat the Cubs, yay. But, overall, the team still sucks. They're back in last place in the AL Central. Things are just not looking good. Chris Sale, though, he did have a good start against the Cubs. Struck out 15. I think that was his highest total ever. He couldn't do that when I'm at the game. He had to do it 2 games later. But, I don't hold a grudge. The bats are still, iffy, inconsistent. Robin Ventura is still trotting out Tyler Flowers on a regular basis, probably the worst hitting catcher in the league, if not in the bottom 5. He's still trotting out Adam LaRoche, who, I like. I appreciate him as a player because he falls into my wheelhouse of type of players that I like, but he's not having a good year. But, it's just one of those things where why would you expect a player whose first name is Adam, who played first base for the Washington Nationals, who's a left-handed power hitter, why would you think he wouldn't do well when he came to the White Sox? It's not like they have a tradition of having bad people with that skill set. You can't see me, but I'm making a weird face because there was Adam Dunn. But, hopefully, LaRoche is around for another year, so hopefully he turns it around and at least plays average next year, because he's getting old, and I can't imagine him suddenly picking it up and becoming old Adam LaRoche next year. But as long as he could do something better than this year, it'll be a bonus. But he's still playing. The other aspect, I've talked about these two before. There's Carlos Sanchez and there's Tyler Saladino. Saladino is an overrated guy, in my opinion. His bat's stupid. It stinks. But on both Fangraphs and on Baseball Reference, his WAR, W-A-R, I've talked about this before, but his WAR for both of those websites are at or over 1, which if you looked at his offensive numbers, you'll be confused. And the reason why he's doing this well is because his defense is really good. And I think I talked about it before, but defense can be overrated. So I really don't like him as a starter for the White Sox. If he's, a bench guy, then that's a completely different story. I'm fine with it because he's a really good fielder. Carlos Sanchez has kept his bat up, so maybe possibly looking at him as a second base starter going forward, so that's a positive. The bottom line is that they have a lot to work on this offseason, and there's not a lot to be... How do I phrase this? There's not a lot of free agents this offseason, and there's not a lot of players that they're going to be able to get in trade, so it's going to be kind of difficult for them to do a whole lot, unless a miracle happens. And by miracle, I mean... Rick Hahn has to totally blindside someone with a trade and just rip them off. Otherwise, there's really not a whole lot that they can do. And that sucks because there's still a gaping hole at catcher. There's going to be a gaping hole at third base. Outfield's pretty solid. I mean, I'm still not an Avisail Garcia fan, but he makes contact, he gets base hits, so that's there's value in that. But catcher is a big deal, third base is a big deal, back end starting rotation is a big deal. As much as John Danks, as inconsistent as he is, when he's good, but when he's bad, he's awful. So it's just one of those things you have to measure if you can handle the bad with. Or if his good is good enough to deal with his awfulness, probably the best way to put it. Outside of Chris Sale and Quintana, you have Carlos Rodon, who seems to be piecing everything together finally. There's a lot of people in the farm leagues that are looking good, so it's just a matter of time at this point. So knocking on wood, hoping the team can put it together, and 2016 is the start of a, how do I phrase this, golden era for the Chicago White Sox.
I put my hand in your shirt, put my hand in your shirt, I put my hand in your shirt.
And that does it for episode 16 of the Baseball and Beer podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening, sticking with me for these 16 episodes, plus whatever I do going forward. If you want to get in touch with me, there are several ways to do so. You can join my Facebook group at facebook.com/baseballbeerpod. I try to post pictures, share MLB stuff, share whatever craft beer stuff I can find, and try to get conversations going over there. If you are a Twitter head, it's at Baseball Beer Pod. If you want to send me an email, have any questions from this episode or any previous episode, you can email me at baseballbeerpodcast@gmail.com. And like I mentioned before, if you do not want to subscribe to me on iTunes, which you certainly should, I can be found at baseballandbeerpodcast.blogspot.com. That's where I post every new episode, and that is also where you can find all previous episodes, so go ahead and do it. Again, this is the Baseball and Beer podcast. I am Brendan Bowes, and thank you for listening. I hope everyone has a great week.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
Awesome.
I do not like Julia Roberts movies.